Hello everyone. Today we might be axing something to death, or we might be greatly finding out something deeper into the mysteries of gaming. So before we start on the main topic, which you should already know from the title, I want to talk about something. I'm pretty generous to games, really. And I've said before that creativity I will always award, even if it's failed creativity. Trying a new idea I can give points to, instead of the same drivel over and over again. But functionality is something else I award too. That's why I didn't have as much of a freak out problem with Final Fantasy 13. Balancing in 13-2 is a different issue though. But the original 13, I didn't freak out as much because it worked. It functioned. You could get to end the beginning. There ain't bugs. I don't even know any bugs for 13. Though I'm sure they exist. Somebody probably has found one before. But I've never seen any. So I mean, it's a functional game. It's not say, Drake and the 99 Dragons, broken and almost I can't believe anyone could ever get to the end of that. Or, impossibly insane as, you think Dark Souls or Demon Souls is hard? Pick up Bomberman Zero. That's the true Demon Souls in gaming, my dear friends. Those are some really horrible games. And while I would say Lunar Dragon Song is a functional game, but it disappoints in a different way. It's disbalanced. It's the same issue that Final Fantasy 13-2 has. It's this big choring disbalance in how it wants you to go about it. It just really feels like it's just fattening itself up for no real fucking reason. But those are all subjective opinions. Everything's a subjective opinion. I'm sure there's somebody out there who actually likes Drake and 99 Dragons. But none of that's the point. The point is that I like to try and bring out the good and not just completely shit on something. But that ain't going to stop me from shitting on something. So, with that said, we have One Piece Romance Dawn. And I have copy 4,389 for anyone who is curious, and there was only 16,800 copies made. Physical copies, of course. So it's 3DS title. Packaging looks pretty nice. It does not come with a booklet. I always use the Nintendo card things. That doesn't matter much anyway. But instead of having a square fold out, we just have a 3-page fold out, so nothing fancy there at all. It has an in-game digital manual like a lot of 3DS titles have been having. So, what do I think of One Piece Romance Dawn? A lot of people have been asking me. Some people were hoping I'd actually get it out a little sooner, and to be honest, if I was really going to do a first impression video as soon as possible on it, it would have been Lunar Dragon Song bad. But I have some good news. I decided I wanted to play more. I wanted to really get in a little more just to see if there was anything salvageable in this game. The first thing we need to keep in mind, this is a PSP port. This is a game that existed on the PSP in Japan. So, you gotta keep in mind, you can't just well, Final Fantasy 1 port on the PSP, Well, it's staying true to its roots, but shit, man. You gotta have a little leeway there. So, graphically, it actually looks nice. The in-game graphics are very nice, bright and colorful and everything. But the in-game graphics are not used for a lot of stuff. What you'll see the most is the story. And that's probably my biggest complaint. The story is done the most fucking lazy-ass way. I haven't seen a game do this kind of shit in a long time. It is only still images and little portraits. Now, I mean, there's nothing wrong with little portraits and stuff and that, but it's not really even like they're well drawn or anything. And like it uses still images from the anime, and not very commonly. There's only some here and there. It uses a lot of fucking portraits just wobbling around in that. And to be honest, they look kind of weird. Naomi looks a little odd, and Luffy's hat, when he gets his straw hat, looks slightly odd. It doesn't look as wide. It looks like it's all scrumped up in his portrait image, and I don't know what's up with that. It looks really odd. It doesn't look very good. And there's a lot of dialogue. The story scene so far, what all my game time seems to be devoted more to than actual gameplay. Which, I mean, you know, you can argue that would be normal in an RPG or modern RPGs or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like they could have done more. Used in-game graphics, or hell, used more anime still cuts. I mean, that would have probably just been better than you throwing all these profile images everywhere. And they don't even actually go into huge amounts of detail over the story. They're actual, like the beginning when Luffy leaves his town. It skips some of that part and just goes straight to where Zoro is in the yard in the marine area and stuff. There's different parts they just kind of take out these sections out and just kind of go, blah, 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 this happened, okay, this is what's going on now. And, well, considering how much they fucking... There's lots of story in here. There's a lot of story. And I think if you don't have experience with One Piece, you're basically not going to like the story segment issues. They're just kind of... I don't know, they're just really a walkie wide when it comes to the story. You can skip them. So if you're familiar with the One Piece story, you can just kind of speed up the gameplay and skip them because, I mean, you know the story, so... But I think there could have been a lot better done. I mean, hell, they could have used just more bigger profile images with more expression or something. I mean, it's a different form of standards, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like something it doesn't look like... It just really seemed lazy to me. I mean... Now, the gameplay... Running around in the actual environment looks nice, but the environment suffers Final Fantasy XIII syndrome. If you were along with JonTron screaming, hallways! Then, well, get away. You're going to have more hallways. While more Maziel, it still has the same problem. There's just a small unbeaten path, chest, and back onto the main roads. That will eventually lead to the next screen change or boss or story transition. And be honest, at this point, going through dungeons has gone boring. They're not interesting enough. I mean, all there is enemies, breakables, and chests. I mean, that's all there really is. And it would be more interesting if the enemy variety was more interesting. But going into combat, which is what I'm going to say might be the saving grace of this. Take with a pinch of salt. The battle system has mixed feelings with me, but I think it might evolve into being the saving grace of the game. At first, it seems like Luffy's the only person that can make the combat really interesting, while other characters only can attack one person. Basically, combat, it has a moving turn-based combat where your characters move to positions on the battlefield, and then you take your turns. And it uses a combo system instead of just, you do one attack. It uses a combo system where you can do multiple attacks. And Luffy being, a stretchy gummy guy, some of his moves can hit multiple people. So if you get him kind of crunched up, whoops, you just damaged multiple people. Now, at first it seems like no one else can do this, like I said. But it seems like someone's skills in that start opening up for different characters. Well, eventually they can start hitting other people and doing weird things. And it feels more encouraging when you get that. Like, I found, like, Luffy's when he does a straight out kick thing, and it's really hard to do with his regular combo kick. But if it's dead on, you can actually hit the other person with it. It's a lot easier with his whipping like combos, and it is tricky. It seems like it's not as spot on. Like the hit detection of colliding seems a little iffy in a few things I've seen. So, because I have like directly in his normal original combo he starts with, he does a straight out kick thing, and you can have the person you kick hit the next guy, but I've only had it happen twice. Like, I've had them literally be like near each other and just barely miss each other and that tons of times. So it seems like it's really fickly. But if the game opens up more with a lot more moves like this, it would make combat a lot more fun in my opinion. But, you know, there's still a lot more. I'm currently at a moment where I need to get Luffy grinded up because I'm at a boss fight that's he fights solo by himself, so it kind of sucks ass at the moment, but... And that's another issue I'm finding right now. While it could be, you know, it's faithful to the anime, some of these solo fights are a little annoying, though. They're kind of encouraging a lot of grinding, and it's kind of making me feel like it's doing that Lunar Dragon Song fattening up. And... I don't know, it just kind of ruins the pacing now. But the battle system so far seems to be the saving grace to me. The world map is boring as hell. It's like Final Fantasy X. You got a map and you open up parts and you just go wee to your destination. There's no real exploring interactiveness with the world, which is a shame because the actual in-game moving around looks nice. So if we got with some of the hallways and kind of opened up some towns and stuff and interactive, it could have made the world feel a lot more better in my opinion. But shops are only at certain towns and you just drive your ship there and boom, open up shop menu, so it doesn't feel as explorative. Now, the in-game models and that, for fighting and that, they look all nice and everything. Everything looks very nice. But enemies, aside from bosses, normal enemies, as far as I see, all are the same. There's pirates and marines. They either have a sword, a gun, or some kind of throwable explosive, is all I've seen so far. And they're either a pirate or a marine. Not a lot of variety. Now, of course, this is supposed to cover several arcs of One Piece, so there could be some more opening up of weirder enemies maybe later on down the line. But right now, there does not seem to be a lot of variety. And the game does have a crafting system of all things, to be honest. That's a little weird. One Piece crafting. You can find a lot of materials, craft your own items and that. So far, I haven't seen a whole lot of useful things, but it's early on. Crafting's probably going to be more of a later on thing. Usually games with crafting usually is a much more later usefulness. There's usually not huge expensive things to do with it early on, unless it's something like Classic Heroes or that, where like almost the entire economy of the world depends on alchemy. But, inventory... You have a limited inventory, and you do have a depositing storage system, and that's kind of annoying because you get a lot of different items when you're running around dungeons. A lot of times I find my pockets get filled up, and I'm always like throwing crap in the storage. You know, not to be mean, but this is like this kind of concept with item storage and that shouldn't be something in like an RPG unless it's some kind of survival game like Breath of Fire 5 or something, you know. It's kind of a weird concept to have in a modern game these days, really. I mean, in the older days, like Super Nintendo and that, you had a lot of limitations on memory and that. And these days, that's not really a problem when you can save huge amounts of different size of files. So, I found that pretty annoying too. Luckily, you can usually find save points, but it gets pretty annoying to go to save points, store your crap and stuff over and over and over again. Luckily, it's kind of like Demon Souls and Dark Souls, where when you go to craft your, upgrade your items and stuff, you don't have to worry about pulling out all the materials and shit. So that's at least a nice touch there. I don't have to worry about pulling all the crap and trying to figure out what I need and don't need and stuff. I can just start crafting, whether they're in storage or my inventory. So at least they weren't stupid to do that, because then I would have just fucking went, ugh. Now, what I really find really odd in the game is, what's a comparable game? I can't think of a game off my head, but basically, your equipable items sometimes have abilities attached to them. So I guess you could kind of say it's a little like Final Fantasy IX, except it's not something they learn, it's only while they're wearing it. And it has limited charges. There's no like MP system, so whenever you rest, you restore those charges. And so far I got a lot of medical stuff so far. Some passive abilities also exist on some equipment too. So it is worth... Actually, you know, Lufia 2 is actually a good example of that. Lufia 2 featured equipment that had special usable abilities attached to the items. Something kind of like that. There's some healing, attacking, and stuff like that. So far, mostly I got healing stuff. But I'm sure there's probably going to be more. It seems kind of weird again in One Piece, you know. I don't know, it seems really weird in its universe. Just, oh, Luffy and Zoro have all these first aid abilities and things. It just seems a little odd. I mean, obviously somebody has to heal something, you know. It is odd, though. Now, party-wise, you can only have 3 people in your party, and as you know, Luffy's crew gets bigger than 3, so depending on what missions you're on, like the free-roaming missions, you can take whoever, but the story missions sometimes have certain characters locked in, so you're kind of sometimes stuck with who gets to go in there. Now, each character so far, I have up to the chef so far. And so far, it's... Nami doesn't seem as useful so far. Usopp seems okay if you don't want to worry about running around the battlefield. So far, Sanji and Luffy seem to be the best people for multi-hitting of characters so far. And you can't really upgrade weapons or anything. You just have hat, body, accessories, and shoes. And a few items do actually cosmetically change on them a little, but not a lot so far. So far I've seen only a few wristbands and a pack. So it doesn't look like there's a lot of things that affect that, but it looks like there's a few things. So I'm not sure how much detail they're going to go into with that. I think I heard you can get some hats and glasses and that here and there, so... Now, you might wonder, what does the 3DS offer this PSP port? Well, obviously, you know, you got the 2 screens, so what's it use them for? The bottom screen displays a map, top screen's where all the gameplay happens. And to be honest, the bottom screen might as well not really exist, to be honest. It does show icons when you pause the menu, and I don't know why it doesn't just show them all the time. I'm not really sure what's up with that. But the map's not too useful aside from just keeping yourself from getting lost if you're backtracking through all the paths, trying to fully explore before you go out. But, oh, this is really a bit of a toughie thing. It's a functional game. It kinda, I do recommend looking into the digital manual for the game, because you will kind of understand a few additional things. But the game does kind of leave you a little dry on some notes here and there. And it is a functional game, but it feels like there's a lot of iffy designs and some cheapskate things. Again, keeping in mind this is a port, even on the PSP, I definitely think they could have done a much better way of telling the story of One Piece. I mean, they could have thrown in more animation. They could have done better profile images. I mean, what I'm talking about, like little teeny squares with their heads in them. Like, we're not talking about full body portraits where they're like, yes, this is the end. You will die by my hands, Luffy. Like, you know, it's not... It's just like one of the most laziest ways to tell a story in this time period. I mean, we're talking about stuff like companies did like on the NES and Super Nintendo. You know, back then that stuff was more acceptable. Nowadays, it's kind of saw as more lazy unless you're not a big company. And we're talking about Bandai Namco here, so... You know, they don't really have that, like, oh, we're just little indie people. They're like, you don't really got that excuse, man. Don't really got that excuse. So, of course, the harder question is, recommendation of this game. It functions, and I think over time, and I'd hate to recommend this in the way that people would recommend Final Fantasy XIII, but I think over time, the combat system, in theory, could become the saving grace of the game. But that's still 50-50. I'd really have to play more. But it looks like it's evolving to be a little more interesting. But if it doesn't, and the enemies don't start changing and doing different things, it could also turn to be incredibly boring, linear, and repetitive as hell. And I always heard other people's opinions on a lot of this game. This game's Metacritic score is going straight down the hole, like, quickly. I'd say, if you're a One Piece fan, or you're willing to give the game a try, or you're a collector, get this game. Because it does have a limited one, and it was a GameStop exclusive. So if you're interested in a collector's thing, probably getting it as soon as possible is probably a better interest there. But if you want a really polished RPG experience, I'd have to tell you to pass. There's much better RPGs worthy your time, and I know there are people who do like this game. So nothing personal with you all. I think this game, you need to be a lot more forgiving to. I sadly would have to recommend people who want a more in-depth RPG to look at Bravely Default or many ways of other titles. I don't think you're going to really get into One Piece Romance Dawn unless you're a fan of One Piece. And I am a fan of One Piece. I want to note that. I do like One Piece. I like a lot of the beginning arcs in that. But I really feel like the story was lazily done. Like, it's not interesting to me like the Wii experience, you know. Just seeing like these bobbling little squares just like going in or out or that, and it's just doesn't really do it for me. I don't ask for a lot of real big flashy things, you know, but I mean, you could even use the little sprites. I mean, it's not like there weren't, like, other games and stuff. They had sprites of the characters and stuff. They could do a story thing of that. But, of course, those complaints go more towards the PSP original version, of course. But, I don't know. Just, the way the story was told was, eh. And I do have to wonder if Namco kind of felt America was going to kind of look down on this. Oh, by the way, I forgot to also mention, there is no English dub in this game. What little voice acting there is Japanese. So if you like that, that's good for you. If you don't like that, it's bad for you. You know, that depends on what you like. But there is no choice. There's only Japanese for what little there is. And there's not a lot. There is very little I've experienced with actual voice acting, so even if you like Japanese voiceovers, I don't see a lot of them so far. So I mean, they say stuff in combat, but I mean like cutscene story parts, there is not a lot of them. such a difficult game to really recommend, to be honest. It's really tricky. It has a lot of interesting elements, but at the same time, they seem kind of oddly placed in one piece. And at the same time, there seems to be a weird balance of progression. Because like I said, I've kind of fell into a wall twice so far, and currently I'm in another wall. And it kind of seems to have this progression loop where it really encourages you to go take a Pacific character and get him grinded for a solo fight. It's really tricky, really tricky. I would recommend maybe looking up some video gameplay, take a look at all of that, and maybe a few other reviews. But to be honest, I might be one of the few fair reviews, to be honest. And even then, I wasn't incredibly nice to this title. But believe me, I've always seen a lot of other reviews, and a lot of reviews were really harsh. And I know I'm probably going to get different comments of people saying this game is absolutely shit, or other people trying to defend the game. It kind of reminds me back when Full Metal Alchemist's games came back on the PS2, and I hate those much more than this game, that's for sure. I can tell you those. Those were lost opportunities for two-player, and those were really fucking badly done. But that's a whole nother discussion now. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I think it's probably at most going to be an alright game, but there's a lot better out there. And it's $39 for this. And if you're willing to wait to see if there's a price drop, I'd say, like, if I was to label how much I think money-wise it'll be worth for the content you're getting, I'd say probably 29 or even 19 is probably a better price for this game. But considering it's a limited one, that's a risk that resellers might fucking, be like, oh, well, we'll just buy about 20 of those, sell on those for a year, and $200 on eBay. So, that's, of course, all up to you. If you have any more questions, because this is definitely a really hard game to really express, in my opinion. But if you have any more questions, please feel free to leave a comment, and I will try to answer. And I am going to continue playing, of course. So if you want a kind of an update on anything that's, any new thoughts of that, feel free to ask it, because I'm going to try and keep pushing forward to see if the combat system is going to get any better. I'm hoping it could be its saving grace, but that might be wishing for too much. That's my thoughts. I'll see you all later, and hopefully under better circumstances. Peace out.